Good morning and welcome to AMSSA's webinar titled Supporting the Alignment of Pre- and Post-Arrival Services for Newcomers. My name is Sabrina Dimitra and I am AMSSA Settlement Coordinator and I will be guiding us through today's webinar. I'm here accompanied in the AMSSA office by some of our presenters as well as by Kana Raslan, our AV Coordinator, who will be guiding us through the technical aspects of today's webinar. So today's webinar, we're going to have various different speakers. We're going to be having a presenter from Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, as well as from Immigration Research West, as well as other pre-arrival service providers. And so I just wanted to preface this webinar that this is a cross-selection of pre-arrival service providers and that there are many other organizations who do offer pre-arrival services, including FFCB, the Fédération de Francophones de la Colombie-Britannique, who also offer services for Francophone arrivals to British Columbia. And we will be sending out some more information regarding those pre-arrival services following the webinar. So before we get started, I would like to thank IRCC for funding today's event. Thank you to our funder again. So now I'd like to move on and introduce our first speaker of the day. Our first speaker of today is Tim Farron, the Senior Director of Horizontal Policy and Programs, Settlement and Integration Policy with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. And Tim is located at National Headquarters in Ottawa. Hello, Tim, and welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Sabrina, for that introduction. And I'd just like to say I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about pre-arrival services on behalf of IRCC. This is the invitation from AMSSA was very timely. We really welcome this opportunity to discuss and share some information, and the whole agenda looks very interesting to us, and the opportunity for questions and answers, we welcome that as well. I'd say that in the agenda, as this was set up, there were some questions that were suggested for IRCC. So I think as I couldn't go through the presentation, I'm really going to try to address those as we go along as part of the content as well. And I'll be doing the full presentation, but I'll just let folks know that I'm joined here today with one of my team members, Caroline Liebenberg, and so I may be drawing on her for later on in the questions, and so she's been leading this file for my team. So we can move to the next slide, and really this is just an overview of where we want to go, and just talk about the services and where we're at, and really the next steps. So I think we'll just move again to the next slide. Okay, so really just to give a bit of a flavor of our pre-arrival services, that the government has been funding pre-arrival going back to 1998. And it's really been at that, prior to 2015, there was really three organizations that were delivering, the IOM, the International Organization of Migration, focusing really on the refugee side primarily, and then as well Success, who we'll be hearing I think later today, and CICAN, or Colleges and Institutes Canada, previously known as ACCC. And so I think there I would highlight that there was in 2015 pre-arrival services were expanded, and really the objective or the goal at that time was to provide more comprehensive and tailored in-person and online pre-arrival services, focusing on both refugees and economic immigrants, and that was the focus. But really, all immigration classes are eligible to receive those services. At the bottom of the slide, it gives a bit of the volume of the investments from IRCC that it has grown to around the $30 million range at this point. And so just a little bit, I guess, on the services and the objectives there, really around, really key, wanting to make sure that There's realistic expectations that newcomers, immigrants have realistic expectations that they can make informed decisions around their life in Canada, have accurate, relevant information, really to prepare in advance to help that smooth transition and in that integration, whether that be with having documents advanced, understanding life in Canada, what some of the challenges may be. There's always an issue often around credential recognition, so having some of that information pre-departure, so how some of those barriers could be addressed. Being able to be, being linked to some of those community supports quickly upon arrival. And as well, I'd highlight on similar on the refugee side, that was looking a bit more on the economic side, but on the refugee side, really preparing for travel, including what some of those, putting those information together where the people are in a precarious situation or situations of trauma. How can that support help ease that issue? Again, having a better understanding of life in Canada and those responsibilities as you're embarking on a new journey. I'll move to the next, which gives a bit of a sense of, I guess, the current projects in play and the scope and the priorities. So there are currently 23 IRCC-funded pre-arrival projects. And most of these projects are offering web-based platforms in a variety of ways, whether that be assessment tools or training or webinars, different one-on-one assessments. 7 projects are delivering in-person services, and primarily in our top source countries, including China, India, Philippines. Francophone is another priority. There's 4 service providers focusing on that, really rooted in Francophone communities. And a big focus as well on employment supports, with 14 projects focusing there specifically, and another 6 having some linkages, important linkages to employment. I would say that on the refugee side, its focus is broader focus in terms of, okay, actually maybe I'll move to the next slide. So on the for pre-arrival services for refugee orientation, specifically there's pre-departure group orientation sessions for refugees, as well as including refugee youth offered by the IOM. And the scope here is in over 30 countries with 50 locations served on a yearly basis. And you have examples of several of the countries there on the slide. And there's in-person services as well as mobile in-person services in other countries. And as I alluded to, really, again, the focus is really providing, helping individuals selected to prepare to travel to Canada, getting those realistic views, dispelling any misconceptions that may be, and helping to early facilitation of the transition, giving information and settlement support. Maybe I'd highlight within there that recognizing that refugee youth have some specific needs and represent a significant percentage of the refugee population. There is also a sort of a youth curriculum that was developed in 2013 with providing some specific supports around youth with age-appropriate and relevant topics that are built into that programming. So as I mentioned earlier on, there was a big expansion of pre-arrival services in 2014, having moved from 3 principal service providers to now 23. And I think with that, there was when you're a big program change and adjustment, I think there was some growing pains along the way. That I can speak to a little bit. And as we were looking at the program in 2016, we undertook what we called a management review. That's kind of more informal than an evaluation, just sort of a programmatic look at implementation issues. And we really found at that time that there was challenges with low client uptake, and there was just some growing pains, I think, internally and externally. And so some of the actions that were taken at the time to respond were sort of adjustments to pre-arrival web page back in March 2017. There's been a much greater use of media presence, social media and promotion that we've taken on board. And as well, there's a particular feature that's just come forward this fall, or just in the last month or so, around more of an automated invitation through our global case management system, where clients at positive eligibility stage are really informed around pre-arrival services more in a proactive way. So I think there's been much effort in terms of addressing that challenge. So I think I'd also maybe give some examples of the social media efforts that there's been over the summer. There was tweets and Facebook posts that were released on a weekly basis, and currently services are being promoted on a bi-weekly basis. And there's posting of graphics which have tried to help increase this. We put in place a pre-arrival promotional card as well to help clients be more aware of services that are available. And we're also looking at success stories that may be possible to promote services through a future sort of Instagram campaign. So we're trying to use technologies as much as it can in terms of inserting that promotion. And I think we are seeing that some of the numbers have increased, I think, in terms of client uptake. So I think some of those variety of features going forward, I think have seen some challenges. And as well, we've seen a number of the pre-arrival service providers also promoting their services through social media or websites. So I think there's been a lot of joint efforts around that, and there was really sort of an opportunity for those service providers to use their networks and creativity in terms of promoting those services based on their clients and niche, in terms of promoting the services, not necessarily the organization. So I think I'll move to the next slide. And this is, so where are we at right now? And so the existing agreements that I'd I mentioned earlier had initially been set to end March 31st of this year. And so there was a decision made to extend all those existing process for extension for those agreements through till September, an additional 6 months, but it was really giving us an opportunity to do a more in-depth evaluation. To ensure there was outcomes. So I think many of you would have been contacted by our research and evaluation branch around seeking input, and there's been written input or conversations. They've reached out in a variety of different ways to gather information, and as well as looking at data. And so we really see this as an important, pre-arrival services are an important investment, starting things right, and so we wanted to have those outcomes in place for a new intake process that will happen in the spring, and that we'll be able to use that information as well as important feedback that we're gathering, including conversations like this. So it's really looking at the performance of pre-arrival agreements, looking at client outcomes, looking at linkages and pathways to services, and so we're pulling together those range of different data sources in terms of outcomes. And I'll move to the next slide, which is really just giving a flavor of our next steps, which I alluded to. And so, in addition to those key outcomes that we'll be receiving from the evaluation, We're looking at setting a face-to-face meeting with service providers early in the new year. And a key focus is really going to be exploring options for coordination. And I think that was then, as we've moved to a number of service providers, how can we work better, greater synergies. We'll be using all that information and sort of looking at sort of the program designs and recommendations for policy priorities going forward in the February timeframe, and then this would then inform next steps for the call for proposals. And I guess I just highlight that as information comes forward around the evaluation, we'll certainly be taking opportunities to share that information broadly. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for sharing. I think that was great that you were able to kind of share with the general information regarding pre-arrival services, but also to give a little bit of an update of what's happening right now. Before we continue, there was just one question for clarification from your presentation, and the question was in regards to the list. You had a list of countries. And some of those countries listed where services were being offered, there was an asterisk next to some of those countries. If you could just briefly explain that.
I think that had to, let me just double check, in-person services?
Yeah, I think those are countries where the IOM also delivers services to other immigrants, like economic and family class immigrants.
Okay, perfect, thanks. It was just people, we just had some questions regarding clarification on that.
You're right, it wasn't explicit, thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much, and Tim will be staying on for the duration of the webinar and will be available for questions during the question and answer period at the very end. So thank you so much. And so I'd like to hand it over now to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Dina Cho, who was going to be representing the SOPA program out of Mosaic. And Dina is the program facilitator and has equipped over 80 immigrants with the tools to successfully settle in Canada. As an immigrant herself, Dina understands the challenges many immigrants face. She has over 5 years of facilitation and coaching experience, helping immigrants and refugees integrate into Canadian society. So welcome, Dina, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the SOPA program.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting us to participate in this webinar. So it's my pleasure to talk about SOPA today. Next slide, please. So basically, what is SOPA? SOPA stands for Settlement Online Pre-Arrival, and we are funded by Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada. And basically, we provide 5 free online courses for immigrants prior to their arrival in Canada. And those courses help people to arrive prepared and to enter Canadian workplace and find jobs faster. So basically, we were created to improve linkages between pre-arrival and post-arrival services. And we started kind of 2 years ago in October 2015. So basically, SOPA it's a national project. We exist in all provinces except Quebec. And here on the screen, you see the logos of the organizations that basically provide SOPA in various provinces, with the main contractor ISENS, which provides services for Atlantic provinces, Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia. And Mosaic is a sole provider for SOPA program in British Columbia. So basically, what would be the program benefits for newcomers? So this program helps newcomers build realistic goals with the right tools for their job search in Canada. Many of them are not aware that basically their occupations are regulated in Canada. And we bring that awareness and what documentation needed, and you know, when they gain that knowledge, they feel much more confident which documents to bring and how to access licensing bodies here in British Columbia. Also, clients learn about job search techniques, how to write cover letter, how to write resume, interview skills. networking, and many more. They also learn about Canadian workplace culture and communication styles, soft skills needed to keep the job. These things are kind of quite an eye-opener for them, just because it is very different from their countries. Also, they establish connections with post-arrival employment programs in BC for continuous support. And of course, as a result, immigrants arrive in Canada better prepared, more confident, and enter the workforce sooner, which kind of we have so much proof from client surveys and client success stories. Next, please. So available courses that SOPA provides is job search strategies, 2 soft skills courses, professional communication, and working with others. Those 3 courses are facilitated. Basically, clients get one-on-one support from a facilitator and feedback on their assignments. And their assignments usually would be writing their cover letter, writing their resume, interview practicing. So that would be a really kind of important part for that. And for those clients who don't have much time to take our facilitated courses, they have a chance to take Canadian Workplace Integration and Working in Canada course, which basically teach them how to adapt, working with differences, and basically learning about labor laws in Canada. So who is eligible for our program? Of course, to be eligible, clients need to live outside of Canada, and they should have received approval from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada to immigrate to Canada, and we accept one of the following documents: a confirmation of permanent residence document, a letter notifying pickup of Canadian visa, and that visa should be for permanent residents only, because we've been approached by clients who are coming on work permit and others. Medical or security notification letter, or Canadian visa stamped in their passport. Also, because all our courses are in English, they have to have IELTS 5.5 or higher, and that's a recommended level to actually benefit from the program the most. And because all our courses are online, and we use distance kind of concept learning, and they have to have access to a computer and high-speed internet from their home. Next one, please. So basically, how do clients get into our program? When they get a notification, as Tim mentioned before, they inform clients at the final stages of their immigration that pre-arrival services are available for them. So basically, the first step is to register on our website. To register, they will complete eligibility and registration questions. And after that, our intake worker will contact them with the next steps. And usually the first step would be online meeting with an intake worker, basically to identify their needs and priorities, and then recommend appropriate courses for their specific situation, and also recommend resources for after their arrival too. And step 3 would be, after this intake session, clients get enrollment keys for SOPA courses, whatever courses they choose. Here on this slide and the next slide too, you can actually see some success stories, and just a couple of words about clients' feedback about the program, which really motivates us to work with pre-arrival services. Majority of them would find a job within month to 3 months, and majority of them would be finding jobs in their field, which is very good for us to see. I'm not talking about regulated occupations. It's a bit different story here, but majority of them are happy with the program, with the outcome, and that they basically have knowledge about post-arrival services available for them. So basically, how can post-arrival services best liaise with SOPA? We are very open to work with other pre-arrival programs, and majority of them are our partners right now, and we're happy to kind of share those success stories with each other. And for us, we are always open to please contact us to establish a connection to make warm referrals, because let's say if a client comes to Vancouver, we try to give them specific organization and specific name and a phone number. This way, the chances that they contact the program or the organizations are much higher than just giving them an action plan and not kind of emphasizing this importance. So we are open to partnerships, and send us information about your programs available for new immigrants, and we will be happy to include them in clients' action plans and kind of emphasize those programs. So that's basically how we are happy to work with others. And some information about registration and how to contact us. Basically, if you do have clients who have relatives or friends who are in the process of immigration in Canada, basically they need to go to our website, www.arriveprepared.ca, to register. And if you, as a post-arrival service provider, if you want to contact us and talk about your post-arrival services available for clients, we will be happy to connect. Our email address is sopa@mosaicbc.com, and the phone number is 778-591-9334. And I guess that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you for sharing about the SOPA program. I think the valuable part of today's webinar is really service providers around the province will have the opportunity to really hear about some of the various different pre-arrival services being offered and also find ways to connect. So I do hope that many do take up your offer and connect with you. And we will be sharing the slides and that information with everyone, so they'll have all of your contact information following the webinar. And so I would like to move on to our next presenter for today. Our next presenter is Iona Santos Fresnova from the Immigrant Employment Council of BC. Iona is the program coordinator responsible for FAST, formally Facilitating Access to Skills Trade in BC, a set of free tools and resources helping prepare skilled immigrants for the Canadian workforce. Iona has over a decade of work experience working in the communications and development for clients in government, tourism, IT, academia, and nonprofits. So I would like to thank Iona for joining us today and hand it over for her to talk about ICBC's pre-arrival program.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the AMSSA team for organizing this webinar and for making us part of it. My name is Iona Santos Fresnoza, Program Coordinator at the Immigrant Employment Council of British Columbia. On behalf of our Senior Manager for Workplace Development, Sangeeta Subramanian, I am pleased to join this morning's session to tell you more about our FAST pre-arrival program designed to prepare skilled immigrants for successful Canadian careers. Firstly, let me introduce who we are. The Immigrant Employment Council of British Columbia, or IECBC, is a provincial not-for-profit organization that provides BC employers with the solutions and resources they need to attract, hire, and retain qualified immigrants. We believe that the successful integration of skilled newcomers into the BC labor force is critical to both their success and our province's long-term economic performance. We work with employers, governments, and other partner stakeholders to ensure that BC employers can effectively integrate global talent. And a cornerstone of our work is helping employers connect with qualified and diverse talent. So we believe this only works if we have a job-ready talent pool. And next slide, please. It's recognized that skilled immigrants play a significant role in filling the labor gap in Canada. According to the Conference Board of Canada, 350,000 immigrants are needed annually by 2035 to meet the country's workforce needs. Also, the BC labor market information revealed that there are almost 1 million jobs in skilled trades projected in BC between 2015 to 2025. And in biotechnology, 33% of the companies have reported skills shortages from a labor market report conducted by BioTalent Canada in 2013. And in BC, the BC Tech Association reports a talent crisis in the industry, which is limiting its growth. Next slide, please. And while we know that immigrants play a vital role in coping with this demand in labor, it's not easy to just land that job. There are barriers to employment, such as unfamiliarity with Canadian workplace culture and expectations, the lack of cultural fit, which is a crucial factor in hiring decisions, and the lack of local industry connections has a big impact. And so, move to the next slide. This is why we have developed FAST, an online career preparation program to help skilled immigrants get ready for the Canadian workplace before arriving in Canada. FAST is an online program, and our website, fastbc.org, is where participants log in. It's designed for 68 occupations in 3 streams, 35 in skilled trades. The next slide after that. I was saying that FAST is designed for 3 streams, skilled trades, 35 occupations, including power engineering, carpentry, and ASD, 16 occupations in biotech and life sciences, and 17 occupations in IT and data services. And the FAST program is designed for these people, those who have been approved in principle to immigrate to Canada, meaning they have received a letter of invitation or a visa from the IRCC, those who are convention refugees or protected persons who have been selected for resettlement in Canada. And because this is offered in English, we are looking for CLB 5.5 or higher, those who can communicate well at a Canadian workplace skill level, and those who have 2 or more years of experience in IT, biotech, or skilled trades, or a related occupation. The benefits of the program are manifold. Skilled immigrants will acquire the soft skills they need to integrate successfully into the Canadian workplace. They learn about Canadian workplace communication styles, diversity in the workplace, and a variety of other relevant subjects to help them succeed in their careers in Canada. And after completion, they will receive a certificate, which we'll send to them, and they will gain access to BC Job Connect, which is an online tool that can help them showcase their talents and experience to employers who are in the platform as well. And another benefit, if we move to the next slide, specifically for IT professionals, is the ITP, or Information Technology Professional designation, which is given through our partnership with ICTC, or Information Communications Technology Council. This is a documentation that will validate non-Canadian or international work experience for employers. And the ultimate goal of this program is to increase employability for immigrating IT professionals. This is a $500 value that is offered free of charge for FAST participants. Another major advantage, this is specifically for biotech participants in FAST, is the free access to the BioSkills recognition program, which is provided through our partner BioTalent Canada. This is a resource that lets FAST participants showcase their abilities to employers in Canada's growing biotech sector. So how it works is that skilled immigrants upload their resume, other certifications, or international experience online in the BioTalent portal, and biotechnology professionals will review and evaluate them. And once this review is complete, immigrants receive a BioReady certificate that is an industry seal of approval validating their international experience. And this is something that they can add to their CVs or their resumes or their work portfolio. And this is usually cost at 200 Canadian dollars, but is offered free for FAST program participants. To date, we have 350 participants and counting who are in the FAST program. And let me share some of the things that our graduates have to say. The FAST program is very informative. I'm sure many skilled immigrants are benefiting from this initiative. The online modules were excellent, and I really enjoyed studying the content. I now have a wider appreciation for Canadian work environment and skills required to be successful. And move to another slide. This is another testimonial from Gustavo, a laboratory technologist in Brazil. He said, the learning modules were of extreme importance at this stage of preparation before my move to Canada. As far as I'm aware, it was the only pre-arrival service designed to inform health professionals about the biotechnology industry in Canada, including second career alternatives. FAST provides excellent support for people like me who are full of concerns and uncertainties about our future. Just a quick note about Gustavo. He initially reached out to us early in the year when FAST was still primarily focused on skilled trades. And he said he was willing to start with an alternative career or a transitional job in the trades, as he knew that the labor demand was high in the area. And in June of this year, we informed him of the program expansion to biotechnology, and he was very grateful to be among the first to register for the FAST expanded program. So, next slide, please. We look forward to hearing more success stories or testimonials from other participants of FAST, like Uriv and Gustavo earlier. And so if you have clients who are interested in working in the trades or have experience in trades, IT or biotech, we highly encourage you to refer them to us to register for FAST so that they can gain all these benefits. Our website is fastbc.org, and you can email me at fastbc@iecbc.ca or give me a call if you have specific questions. So move to the next slide, please. So FAST is IECBC's pre-arrival service connecting skilled immigrants to accessible Canadian workplace learning, as well as other opportunities in their field. Once they land in BC, they're referred to BC Job Connect and Mentor Connect, our post-arrival programs, as well as other service delivery partners and SPOs who have other support programs, such as the Career Paths for Skilled Immigrants. So we hope we can help serve your pre-arrival clients. If you can move to the next slide, please. If you know of newcomers in the trades, IT and data services, or biotechnology and life sciences, and who are still overseas and preparing for their move to Canada, they are eligible for the FAST program. I can send an info sheet, which you can include in a standard email, and you can copy our email so that we can follow up with them directly. And once they are verified and registered, they will receive a welcome email so they can access the FAST program. And for additional information, our website is there, FastBC at www.fastbc.org, or you can email me for any other specific questions. And thank you so much for your time and attention. I look forward to answering your questions at the end of the session.
Thank you, Iona. Thank you for sharing about FastBC. I'll look forward to seeing and presenting those questions at the end. So please feel free, even though we're going to be having a Q&A session at the very end of the event today, please submit your questions throughout the event. And as previously mentioned, though, the webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the AMSSA website, as well as a PowerPoint presentations will be shared following the webinar. So I would like to introduce our next speaker for today, Johnny Chen from Success. Johnny Chen is the director of the Active Engagement and Integration Project, AEIP. Since 2008, Johnny has managed the development and implementation of Success's overseas pre-arrival settlement services and initiative. Under his leadership, Success established the AEIP and opened its first 2 overseas services in Seoul, South Korea, and Taipei, Taiwan. In 2015, he established partnerships with settlement agencies across Canada, Asia, and the United States. So welcome, Johnny, and looking forward to hearing more about Success's program.
Thanks, Sabrina, and thanks, AMSSA, for organizing this event. We're happy to be one of the guest speakers to share our pre-arrival services. To start with, maybe I give you a little bit information about Success. We are a non-profit organization with 44 years of experience, providing a wide range of services, including settlement, English language training, employment, business, family, youth and seniors, health, housing, and community development to both newcomers and also Canadians. The Postarrival service managed by Success is called Active Engagement and Integration Project, AEIP. So Success began delivering AEIP in June 2008 with our first overseas offices in South Korea and Taiwan. Since 2008, AEIP has served more than 11,000 clients and from 62 countries. We also serve their family members, which is almost about 5,000 families that who have benefit from this program. So in 2015, we get another office in Beijing, China, and plus the flexible outreach model and online services with the support from LCC promoting the Postarrival services. Actually, our client number has been increased significantly in the past 6 months. AEIP adopts an integrated model and client-centered approach to support clients in managing and meeting their various challenges in both settlement and employment. We are also a project that is national in scale. We have partnered with settlement service providers across Canada to ensure client has a seamless transition to post-arrival settlement services and to ensure client better understand their life in their target Canadian community in the pre-arrival stage. Next, please. Our objective, aligned with LCC objective, we support the settlement, adaptation, and integration of newcomers into Canadian society. And we facilitate the adjustment process and provide a continuum of settlement and employment services from their original countries to their Canadian destination. Similar to other Postarrival service providers, the eligible clients of AEIP are individuals who are selected or approved to become permanent residents of Canada by LCC or pending completion of medical security and criminal verifications. So the document that we required are COLP, and also recently we received a lot of clients who have an invitation from LCC inviting them to participate in the Postarrival services. So while we have clients coming from more than 62 countries, AEIP has a very flexible service delivery model, including in-person, outreach, and virtual services to meet the different needs of clients. So clients can come to our overseas offices for in-person services or make use of our website for online support. If required, we will outreach to other cities. For example, in China, it's really big, so we outreach to other cities in China and also South Korea for those who couldn't attend our in-person services. So we also outreach to other countries, including United States, Japan, Hong Kong, and India in the past years. So we have 3 overseas offices, which are located in Seoul, South Korea, Beijing, China, and Taipei, Taiwan. So we also have an office in Vancouver, BC, to support the online clients who might be located in the other countries. So this is a very flexible and delivery model that we are providing what we call a hybrid model. The unique features of AEIP is we take a holistic and comprehensive approach to ensure the various settlement and employment needs of the entire family are addressed. For example, this includes job search, credential recognition, small business support, as well as key settlement areas such as health, education, school system, housing, taxation, weather, etc. So we utilize a case management model to ensure clients are supported with all dimensions of their settlement and employment needs. In our case management model, we not only work with the client with the need assessment, develop an action plan, and make referrals, but we also provide extensive follow-up and pathways navigation to support clients. This is particularly important with supporting clients to navigate their career path to employment and credential recognition. As part of our holistic approach, we provide continuous one-on-one and family support to address clients' ongoing settlement needs, since their needs are very unique and can differ between families. So as such, one-on-one support is essential to ensure their specific needs are addressed and they are better prepared for their new life in Canada. As part of our comprehensive approach, we offer in-depth, customized workshops on specific topics, in addition to more general orientation. So we have guest speakers coming from our Canadian partners. They are often invited. We believe these in-depth, topic-specific workshops are key as it can increase clients' knowledge about specific settlement topics and facilitate them in making settlement decisions. We all know that immigration can be very stressful. To support clients to develop mutual peer support, we offer in-person support groups in our overseas office. So this support group can be provincial specific, for example, with clients destined for the same provinces, or have particularly client groups such as youth and family to address their specific area of concern. In fact, we have a lot of clients through this support group. They meet with each other, so they share their challenges, experience, and they become friends. So they can have some mutual support and their confidence will be enhanced through those networking events. Next, please. AIP also support clients from pre-arrival to post-arrival. So we have partnered with immigration service organizations in Canada to ensure a seamless transition. So once clients decided which province they will settle, so we will connect our clients with AEIP partners in that province while they are still overseas. So this will better support clients in obtaining the most updated and accurate community information. So a settlement transition plan with client needs and service attended with AEIP will be shared with our partners to ensure referral efficiency. The next, So here, this is an example of our partners. And in addition to those service providers, we also partner with La Federation for clients aim to settle in Francophone community and ICTC, Information Communication and Technology Council, for clients belong to ICT sectors. So for more information, please you can visit our AEIP Virtual Resource Center, www.aeipsuccess.ca. So clients can register with our website, and once they successfully register, they can be able to receive online support, including one-on-one consultation, webinar, self-learning tools. We also have forums for Q&A and discussions. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me with email address johnnychan@success.bc.ca. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Thank you for sharing Success's AEIP program. And please, if you have any questions for Johnny or for that program, please submit them, and we will be covering those questions at the end of the webinar. So our next speaker is a little bit different than the previous speakers, as this individual is a researcher. Dr. Laura Wilkinson will be joining us, and she's just presented at a conference and hopped onto our webinar now. So thank you so much for joining. Laurie is a professor of sociology at the University of Manitoba, editor of the Journal of International Migration and Integration, and director of Immigration Research West. She specializes in studies of racism, settlement, and health among refugees and immigrants. And in 2017, she won the Teaching Excellence Award from the University of Manitoba and the Fellow of the Year for St. John's College in recognition of her teaching and research work. So we're really thankful that Laurie has taken the time out of her busy schedule to join us today, and we'll be sharing some research and some other information that Immigration Research West has collected on pre-arrival services.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I am so sorry that I missed the previous presentations, but I was just giving a speech to an audience here in Ottawa. So Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the University of Manitoba is located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and we're also on the homeland of the Métis Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that most of the work that was done for this project and for this presentation was actually conducted by my colleague, Professor Mahmoud Bhuiyan. He's a professor at the North-South University in Dhaka, Bangladesh, but because it's approximately 12 o'clock at night there, he's unable to join us. So I do apologize if I do something wrong, but I'll try to do the best that I can to share his work with you. We were contracted last spring by the Western Region Working Group of AMSSA to do a survey of pre-arrival services that were available, at least at that time in 2016. So already today, it's a little bit dated what we're presenting, but we had 3 simple objectives. One was to provide a list of pre-arrival services in the 4 Western provinces, which to me seemed like kind of a simple thing, because I thought, well, wouldn't IRCC have a list of these things? And it turns out that they didn't. And it was also probably a bit more difficult than I had anticipated, trying to find all the pre-arrival services. The second objective was to identify the services that they provide and how they developed these services. So in the end, it was a really, really tight project. We had less than 6 weeks to identify the services and then try to interview the people who worked for the services. This posed some problems with getting a hold of people, and as you know, at fiscal year end, everybody's so incredibly busy. So we were grateful that out of the 27 pre-arrival services we identified, 18 of them actually took some time to talk to us about what they did and what their challenges were. And I'm going to share that with you today, because I think maybe our list is maybe a bit dated, but the challenges that they face were very important. So if we can move to the next slide, please. This is a list of the participants that we were able to connect to. They represent all 4 prairie provinces. And I also neglected, this is my fault, not Mahmoud's fault, I forgot to put the 4 national centers on this slide too, which were the Canada Immigration Integration Partnership Program, the Canada Orientation Abroad Program, Settlement Online Pre-Arrival Program, and the Active Engagement and Integration Program, who we had some interaction with as well. So these are the organizations that we were able to speak to, and we only missed 9 of the ones that we found. If we could go to the next slide, please. The types of services that all of these organizations provided, we grouped into 6 kind of themes. The information and orientation theme, revolves around what's it like to live and work in Canada. And so these included issues like licensing requirements for trades and professions, tailored destination information, rights and responsibilities, those sorts of things. The organizations also provided lots of advice and guidance, particularly some of them created individualized settlement plans for people before they came to Canada, and also helped them with action planning once they arrived. Employment services and support, as you can imagine, provide an array of activities, including job search, resume building, interview tips, professional communication, Canadian workplace culture, resume review, credential assessment, although primary, and connecting with employers and mentoring and job seeking. The settlement support services dealt with what are the things that are available in the place where I'm going to, and helping refer people to other services that might be more appropriate. Then finally, just connecting people with communities in terms of connecting the newcomers as they're about to come to Canada with other newcomers who are already there, but also connecting them with Canadians, particularly local employers in the area. If we go to the next slide, please. The primary method of delivering information generally generally was online, so some version of a website. All of them had websites. Some of them had webinars, much like what we're doing today. Many of them had Skype or similar kinds of like telephone communications over the internet, but 3 of them had face-to-face availability. So there's 2 organizations in British Columbia, and you've just heard from one, but there was also an organization in Manitoba which is recently closed, but they provided services in China, the Philippines, and various spots in India. And it's interesting to me because, you know, if you watch the news and you work with immigrants and refugees, everyone talks about internet technology and connections, and if you ask the immigrants, they have great internet connections and cell phones, that sort of thing. But if you talk to the people who are delivering the pre-arrival services, this was a major challenge for them, is trying to connect with people, especially online. So some of the people mentioned that it was, you know, the internet connections were poor, television or telephone connections were poor, even in the 21st century. And so they had lots of challenges connecting with clients that way. If we move to the next slide, I'm going to skip a little bit outside of our study to share with you what immigrants and refugees say about where they found information. So a lot of the pre-arrival stuff, you know, really focused on having a web presence. When you ask immigrants themselves once they get to Canada, and this is from the Pan-Canadian Settlement Survey, which was funded by IRCC, and what they found is that the number 1 and number 2 sources of information were family and friends and government websites, with other websites like the ones I was just discussing being a distant number 3. They also get information from immigrant settlement agencies, and so we can see, you know, just looking at these bars that online presence and online searching for information and having that internet connectivity is hugely important, because the websites, you know, are very important to everyone. If you go to the next slide, in the same study, the survey asked immigrants, do I know where to get services based on where I'm currently living? And the overall outcome is that about 2/3, no matter what province you were in, could identify where they could find services. But there were some differences. If you look at British Columbia, for instance, the very last bar is I'm very comfortable finding services, and for them, that group was a little bit lower than some of the other provinces. But for the most part, about 2/3 felt comfortable or very comfortable about knowing where to get services once they came to Canada. But there was no way for that survey to account for whether or not people received service or received pre-arrival services. So they didn't think to ask that. If we go to the next slide, is it easy for me to get the services that I need to settle in Canada? And again, about 1/3 find it difficult to find the services that they need to settle successfully in Canada. If we go to the next slide, if we go back to our study where we looked at the pre-arrival organizations, we asked the pre-arrival groups what were the most requested settlement services prior to an immigrant's arrival. So on the left-hand side, I've got everything that doesn't have to do with employment, and on the right-hand side, everything to do with employment. So it's not very surprising that, you know, a lot of the questions and a lot of the need was around finding a job, preparing for a job, having my credentials recognized, meeting employers, that sort of thing. So those are a lot of the pre-arrival people fielded those kinds of questions, but then they also fielded the other kinds of questions like housing, daycare, finding schools for their children and for themselves, and even things that, you know, are very important immediately upon arrival, but maybe we don't think about them afterwards, like finding a bank and how do I get a bank account, and then some of the more feelings type things, like what's my family life going to be like when I get to Canada? Will I be able to do this with my family? Those kinds of less objective kinds of questions, but very important to integration kind of questions. If we could move to the next slide, please. If we skip back to what the immigrants themselves say that they needed after arrival, and this is a different study. We did a study of the settlement experiences of immigrants and refugees in Western Canada, and by far the #1 service that they needed once they arrived in Canada was employment. So my point in showing this slide is to share with you that what the pre-arrival people are telling us and what the immigrants are telling us is exactly the same, that there's a heavy emphasis on employment needs versus other kinds of needs. We actually more recently, this past March, did a study of 650 Syrian refugees, and by far the biggest need was around employment issues, that health and wellness, learning a language, finding information about other aspects of living in your province, those needs weren't nearly as high. So if we move to the next slide, if we go back to the pre-arrival organization providers, we asked them what were the challenges that they experienced in providing services to immigrants before they came to Canada. And they identified 6 problems, which I've highlighted in red over 2 slides. So I've got the first 3 on this slide and the last 3 on the other 2 slides. So the first challenge was recruiting and finding clients. Clients themselves, like the immigrants themselves, they maybe had not thought about what they might need because maybe they didn't realize what they needed. So they might not be so interested themselves in learning about these things ahead of time. They also, the settlement providers also identified that clients might not be aware the wealth of services and knowledge that they could get before they came to Canada that would make their transition a bit easier. So just having awareness that this was available was a difficult sell for them. And the thing that we heard the most often, however, was it would be so much easier for the pre-arrival organizations if more sharing with IRCC could be done. It would be so much easier if it was possible to share information about who's coming before they come, so that the pre-arrival services can reach out to immigrants. But of course, this can't be done due to privacy and confidentiality reasons, but maybe there's something that can be done on IRCC's part to kind of nudge people more into getting services. The other challenge they identified was the delivery of pre-arrival services. So the slow internet connection I mentioned already, that was a huge issue, but also the ability to share realistic information, especially when people had questions about particular kinds of jobs. You know, a normal concern that an immigrant might have is, well, I'm a plumber. What is the likelihood of me being able to get a job if I'm moving to, say, Lethbridge, Alberta? That's a question that is valid. It's also a question that probably many of the pre-arrival agencies might not be able to give like a really, detailed answer about that. And also the pre-arrival services always get requests that are way beyond their ability to help them. So, a problem of signing a lease agreement, you need a guarantor in Canada. How do you do that if you don't know anybody? And so it's a definite need on the part of the newcomer, but it's something that the pre-arrival settlement people can't largely help with. Or can you hook me up with a job with a particular company? And some of the people that we spoke to too said that outreach in conflict areas is difficult for all kinds of reasons that I know that you understand. The other challenge that the pre-arrival service folks mentioned to us was the hiring of local staff. We train them and we work very closely with them, but still, if you haven't been to Canada, how is it that you can give good knowledge about being in Canada? And also just trying to keep up to date, to keep them up to date with changing climate, changing environment, changing jobs, those sorts of things. That's hard for the pre-arrival people to provide that information to the local staff. If you can move to the next slide, please. I'm almost finished. Resources were a fourth problem. And it's a problem that all settlement agencies face, no matter whether they're in Canada or pre-arrival. So the people we spoke to said that the funding was definitely inadequate for them to achieve program goals, particularly because there was often too many clients and not enough funding to help them with their real needs. And so I wasn't really surprised to see that coming up as a challenge. Another challenge they mentioned was partnering with other organizations, and it gets back to the original purpose of the study. Just knowing who's giving pre-arrival information and who's doing it and what are they doing is a challenge within the sector. And so I think we've moved even in the last 18 months to make this information easier to share. Some of the organizations themselves, at least the people that we spoke to, perceived that the government wasn't very interested in directing newcomers to their services. And I italicized the word perception because it was their perception. It may not be the truth. But there was a real feeling amongst the people we spoke to that they weren't being acknowledged in the right way. And then finally, the sixth challenge was competing programs. That there's so many programs out there, it implied that people were competing with one another when in fact actually, you know, one of the number one challenges is there's so many clients in need and not enough ability to fulfill that need that actually competition is probably not an issue. But the clients themselves also felt suspicious about the information that they were provided. And I can give an example of this in my world. That in China, for instance, when universities go out to recruit new students in China, they usually charge a fee to attend the career or education fair because the perception is that free services are bad services. And so when you're dealing with those kinds of cultural challenges, suspicion can pop up too. So those are the main challenges that were identified by the people that we spoke to. I'd just like to throw up the last slide just to acknowledge the fact that that AMSSA, the Western Region Working Group of CISA-ACSE, that CIC, which was what it was called back then, and then what it was subsequently renamed, really worked hard to help us to complete this project in less than 5 weeks. And so we're very grateful for them and their support. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have and to forward any kind of questions that I can answer to my colleague Mahmouder in Dhaka, because he's the one who really did the work. But I would like to point out that AMSSA's got a link to the project report on their website. But Mahmouder has created a interactive concept map, which is actually kind of neat too, which I can put you in contact with too. So thank you very much for listening to me, and hopefully I'm not too repetitive about what was just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for integrating various different studies to really highlight the need from both perspectives for pre-arrival services. And thanks for also being part of this, and also going to be referring some later resources. And I'll definitely be sharing that interactive map that Mahmouder has created with everyone following the webinar. So I would like to introduce our next speaker for the day. Our next speaker is Alice Clementis from the BC Construction Association. Alice is a provincial manager of the Integrating Newcomers program for the BC Construction Association. She has 15 years of international program management experience in Canada and abroad. Alice is currently living and working in Victoria, BC, where she's joining us today. Hello, Alice.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to the webinar. It is my pleasure today to introduce you to the BC Construction Association Integrating Newcomers program and explain a bit more in detail what we do concretely with clients and how we relate to other service providers. Next slide, please. So who are we? We are the BC Construction Association. We are an association of employers. We represent about 2,000 employers in BC in the construction sector, ranging from trade contractors, general contractors, supply, design, etc. So anything that is associated to with the construction industry. We are located on the west coast of Canada, and we're made up of 4 regional associations located across the province in BC. So through this network, we have a very wide reach for employers in BC. Next slide, please. So the BC Construction Association manages several employment programs. So the BC CA Integrating Newcomers, which I'll go into a bit more detail afterwards. We also have the Skilled Trade Employment Program, which is specifically for skilled trades for people that are already in British Columbia, so not pre-arrival. We also manage 2 training funds on behalf of the construction industry, specifically for people in the LNG, so natural gas industry. 2 training funds that allow employees and employers to come together and get some funding to get some extra training useful for their current position. So through this, all different program and services, we reach annually approximately over 12,000 industry employers. So even though we only have members of like 2,000, we have about 12,000 employers that we can reach out through the different programs, which is the strength of where the BCCA Integrating Newcomers comes from. The next slide, please. So what is the Integrating Newcomers program? It was launched in September 2015, like most of the pre-arrival. We're funded by the Government of Canada, and of course is a no-fee program. We are industry specific. We are for the construction industry in particular, but we can work with lots of different profiles, and I'll go into a bit more details afterwards. We provide one-on-one assistance to eligible clients, pre-arrival, and we work, of course, in partnership with other service providers, pre-arrival and settlement services as well. Next slide, please. So how can we help? Depending on the situation of the clients, there's a couple of options, but in general, we can help anybody who is approved for settlement in Canada and has an interest in the construction industry, which means that we don't only work with the skilled trades. We work with skilled trades, but also with accountants, human resources, finances, because these are profiles that are needed in the construction industry, and the employers that we work with have expressed that they have a strong need. So we can work with any profile as long as the client is interested in working in the construction industry. So who is eligible? I'm not going to go into a lot of details because it's the same criteria as every other service provider. So approved to come to Canada, outside of Canada, of course, and on their way in the immigration system. Next slide, please. So how does it work? And then for this slide, I'll need you to put the slides one by one. So the first step is to apply online. The application is a very simple form on our website with very basic information, which allows us to take contact. Based on that, we will send second step, the application B, which allows us to confirm that the person is actually eligible. So this is a bit more detailed and has the information about the immigration status, the unique client identifier, etc. The third step, once we know that the person is actually eligible, we would provide an assessment of their skills to determine where the client would be best suited in the industry, and I'll go a bit more in details afterwards. The next step 4 is once the person has gone through the assessment process, we then match them up with an employment placement specialist. We call them reps. This person will work one-on-one with the client. So it is somebody who is available by email, phone, etc., to coach the person, design with them an action plan, make sure that they have all the information necessary. And then, of course, as a final step, before they arrive in Canada, we provide support and relevant information and referral to partners in Canada to make sure the person is not left on their own. Next slide, please. So the core of the program really is for us the skill assessment and the part with the rep. So the assessment itself is an assessment of the skills, education, work experience to determine where the client could potentially fit in the industry. So it's not so much the title or the education, but concretely what did they do before they came to Canada. So with that information, we then determine with them what would be an equivalent in Canada in terms of position and what would be alternative careers. We give them assistance to preparing an industry-specific resume, a resume that will appeal to construction employers, as well as an overview of the Canadian and the BC construction qualification necessary. And we map out with them a pathway to getting qualification recognized in BC, whether it's construction or others. We'll put them in contact with the relevant authorities to make sure that credentials get recognized as soon as possible. It's not an immediate thing, so we provide all the information pre-arrival to make sure that the process can get started as soon as possible. Next slide, please. The second part of the program is working with a regional employment placement specialist. Once the person has gone through the assessment, we have a fairly good idea of where they would fit. So then the reps will work with the person, identifying employers that they would like to work with and type of positions. Once we have an agreement with the client, we start actually looking for job leads. So some of them are public on the internet, and we'll just tell the clients about them, but a lot of the information we have comes from the network of employers. Because we have access to this inside information, we know, for example, that some project will open very soon, and so some human resources support will be needed, for example. So we can contact the employer on behalf of the client saying, we have somebody arriving soon, they have an interesting profile, we know you might be looking for this type of profile, would you be interested in connecting? And so we set up Skype interviews if possible pre-arrival, or help the client just take contact with employers that they would be a good fit in general. And then, of course, we connect newcomers and their family to support in their new communities to make sure that once they arrive in Canada, they can actually have the support they need, because we only up arrival. And if relevant, we refer them to our skilled trade employment programs and other service providers for support. Next slide, please. So the collaboration and communication with settlement services itself. Settlement services can reach out to team members to establish contact and present their services. Currently, we have 2 reps in Vancouver and 1 in Kelowna. So these reps are fairly well connected in the community. They regularly connect with certain service providers and make warm referrals. Part of our exit process is to refer clients, and we make sure we refer them to a person in particular, not just to a generic website, to make sure that the connection is there. The referral can be online by email before arrival, and sometimes in person after landing. We, in most cases, try and meet with the client just after they land and introduce them in person to settlement services to make sure the connection is there. If the client agrees, we share the results of our assessment, but it is a choice from the client, because sometimes they just want to have a different approach. So it's up to them to decide whether they want to share the results of our assessment. Clients choose who they contact. We offer the information about settlement services, who is there, what they do, and then they decide what would be the best in their own situation. So we do that based on our own knowledge of services available in the community. Next slide, please. So this is the end of my presentation. You have my email address and the generic email address. In case you haven't been connected with us yet, I would very much welcome the opportunity to talk with each of the settlement service provider and make sure we include you in the list of referrals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for sharing. And I hope that many individuals find a way to connect with you. I would like to hand over to our next presenter. We have 2 more presenters, and then we will be heading into the Q&A session. So please do continuously submit those questions, and all of our presenters will be taking part in that Q&A session. So our next presenter is Rani Sanga-Tallman. Rani has been with Abbotsford Community Services for over 19 years and has worked in various roles in different contracts such as facilitator, coordinator, supervisor, and currently Rani works as a settlement coordinator within the settlement program providing pre-arrival and employment services. So I'd like to welcome Rani to share about the pre-arrival services that Abbotsford Community Services has.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, AMSSA, for having us do a presentation. My name is Rani Sanga-Tallman, and I'm currently actually the Punjabi settlement worker. I've had many roles over the years, and I will be speaking to you on regards of Abbotsford Community Services India to Canada Pre-Arrival Services for Immigrants program. Just a little bit about Abbotsford Community Services. We're coming up to our 50th anniversary in 2019, nonprofit, and we're the only immigrant serving agency in Abbotsford. And my connection to the project is that I was there in February, actually in Chandigarh, where the office is, and got to actually see hands-on how it all works. So that's slide 2. So our location is Chandigarh in India. Our scope is client service from across India going anywhere in Canada. We offer both online and in-person services. Eligibility, like we've said in other other services as well, permanent residents of Canada, individuals who have been selected to become PRs, and convention refugees and protected persons who have been selected for resettlement in Canada by IRCC and live-in caregivers. The objectives of the program are to strive to assisting Indians with access to quality and reliable information so that they've got the seamless integration and transition into their new lives in Canada. So better prepared economic immigrants and other eligible clients. That would include their families and youth for the culture shock and lifestyle changes that they're all going to experience when they come to Canada. Better educated immigrants about what Canada is, what laws we have, rights, responsibilities, what they can access and, you know, get assistance with. More enhanced opportunities for newcomers to build their employment histories here and the social connections, which is vital in that whole holistic approach. Better linkages to Canadian settlement resources and institutions upon arrival, because that's where it's crucial. The minute you get off the plane, you want to know where you can go. And having that knowledge and knowing that there's somewhere that is accessible lessens that, what do you call, the nervousness, or, you know how it is when you come to a new country. Well, I do anyway. I'm sure most of us do. Better retention of immigrants post-arrival. We have heard of families that came, got no assistance, and it was just so difficult that they decided to return, and that's sad. An overview, the client life cycle. Next is basically, this is an overview of how we deal with the clients and how we assist. So number 1, assisting the needs and identifying their gaps, developing a plan, settlement-related workshops, establishing online connections and mentorship, feedback and review. And we're going to go into detail on these. Next slide. An overview. Clients served to date from December 2015 to October 2017. We have served 1,136 clients. If we look at this, I apologize, the percentages are not there, but I will go through that for the bigger one. 42% is your FSWs, which is the blue. The other large one is 47% for PNPs, and the orange one is PRs at 9%, and then the smaller ones underneath that. We can go through. The next one is undecided is 5%, and then we go smaller and smaller with the other provinces. The next slide is the client categories. Yes, the age group. Again, the 3 biggest are 25 to 44, which is 77%, the blue part. The orange is 0 to 4, 12%, and then 5 to 14, which is the gray, which is 8% for that age category. Next one, we have destinations, and in this one, Ontario, the blue one is 62%, BC is 13%, the orange. The gray is Saskatoon at 6%, 5% is undecided, and then the next little blue is 4% for Nova Scotia, and the green there is Nova Scotia at 4%. So that's just a quick overview of some of the percentages that we have come across in the time we've been delivering the service. Next slide. Our elements of the program are one-on-one, group sessions of in-person or via webinars, online phone calls, emails, and webinars. Next slide. The other elements, program outline. We do a general orientation of Canada, the socio-economic, socio-cultural differences, pre-departure checklist. What do you need when you land here? On-arrival procedures and post-arrival checklists as well. An overview of the labor market, job search and resume building, the education system, and that's for both child and adult, banking and financial literacy, an overview of family dynamics and how it works with large extended families to your nuclear family and what the differences can be from where you come to what is here. Canadian law and responsibilities, and some prerequisites for maintaining PR status and citizenship, soft skills, and any type of questions in addition to that. The next slideshow, please. Specific webinar sessions that we do. The topics that we cover specific topics, and one is the general orientation, and that's the brief overview of Canada, geography, government, climate, history, industries, just getting a better sense of what Canada is and soft skills. And this is delivered by Amisha Prihar, who is our settlement worker in the India office in Chandigarh. The second one is settling in Canada. This session covers the important things to do on arrival, your PR cards in, healthcare, housing, banking, driving, social standards and expectations. In addition, education, family support. And these sessions are delivered by our settlement worker here in Abbotsford, Canada, and her name is Manpreet Bra. She's actually currently in India and works at the office for about a month and will be joining us back here in December. Other specific webinars organized are employment essentials. The essentials covers the basics, resume building, cover letters, interviews, the importance of networking, the importance of volunteering, which we find is quite something that a lot of people don't do. So that, and then the employer expectations, and then effective job search. And these are delivered by Gorinda Bodwal, who is one of our partners at Diversity, and she's an employment and integration counselor in Surrey, BC. Employer sessions, employers from different sectors are asked to share their experiences and provide insight to their respective fields. The topics aim to cover industry knowledge, standards and expectations, insights on what their hiring processes are, interviews, what their workplace culture looks like, and just another networking opportunity. And employer sessions. And so the person that delivers that is Krista Perry, and she's a coordinator of one of our agency programs called Employment Mentors Program at Abbotsford Community Services in Abbotsford, one of our colleagues. The other one that we do that some people have a lot of interest is starting a business in Canada. So sessions covering business planning, financing, industry regulations, human resources, legal requirements, market research, and marketing. And this is delivered by Jen Romaro, who is also another program, Community Connections, program facilitator with us at ACS, Abbotsford Community Services in Abbotsford. So online connections and mentorship. Our partners are Diversity in Surrey and Mosaic in Vancouver. And our aim is to match immigrants with screened and oriented volunteers. These connections aim to provide the immigrant with mentors, job leads, online friendships, and generally just to make them feel welcomed in the community and where they're choosing to relocate. The aim for this is to provide them with one link, if minimum, to someone in Canada. Okay, so next slide is SharePoint. We also SharePoint arrival information with services. So again, someone's there. Cross referrals if needed. Having a dedicated point of contact at post-arrival services for this. Building synergies and collaborative relationships between the programs and organizations versus competitiveness. I'm just very happy to see that we seem to all be doing the same thing for our clients, and that's really nice to see. and increasing and making better our connectivity and communication. If you look at our frontline team in Canada and India there, Manpreet, as I mentioned, is here in Canada in Abbotsford, and that's her contact information. In India, Banrika Gill is actually just subbing for Amisha, who I mentioned earlier, and she's in the Chandigarh, India office, and she's a settlement worker there. And Namrita Bains is the program manager over in India at the office. So again, the goal is to build connections with services and organizations across Canada, to refer clients to post-arrival services in the cities that they choose to decide to go to, staying in constant touch with settlement workers at various community services in various parts of Canada. In order to save time, we didn't put our success stories in the slideshow, but if you go to our website, India to Canada, you can see our testimonials and success stories. Again, I'd like to thank everybody. I hope we weren't too repetitive with everyone else. And we love doing what we do, and we're very happy with our services in India. And again, the contacts are at the bottom. And if you need to contact us, please access our website or call Abbotsford Community Services, and we'll direct you to whoever needs to be. I look forward to any questions. Thank you again.
Thank you, Rani. Thank you for sharing about the India to Canada program. And I'm certain that there will definitely be questions for you at the end of the webinar on this. I'd like to introduce our final speaker for the day before we get into the Q&A session, so please do submit those questions. Our final speaker is Michael T.K. Tano from the Multicultural Helping House Society. Michael is the acting ED of the Multicultural Helping House Society. He currently works for Principal MC Associate CGA as a registered accounting firm in Vancouver, BC. Prior to this, Michael has worked for the Canadian federal government as the acting manager of financial services for Canada Employment and Immigration. I'd like to welcome Michael to present the final presentation of the day.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I thank you, AMSSA, for inviting us to this webinar this morning. Good morning, everyone, or what's left of the morning, if you will. And I also have with me, by the way, Marius Alparake, who is the coordinator of the program. Our program is called Pathways to Canada. Our pre-departure program is called Pathways to Canada, under the banner of Multicultural Helping House Society. We are Vancouver-based, and we currently have a pre-departure program located in the Philippines called Pathways to Canada. Next slide, please. Okay. We serve the Philippines. We have offices in the Manila area and the southern part of the area called Davao. In addition to that, we also have mobile services that go across the country. These are our officers, but this is not the extent of our deliverers, if you will. We have other folks that come and go that help us along the way. Next slide, please. Okay. What I'd like to do is gloss over some of the things that we do, but more importantly, I want to inform everyone that we are an on-land service in the Philippines. And being that type of a service, I'd like to go over some of the findings that we actually have in operating this service since middle of 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd like to do that more than just inform everybody what we do. I'd like to go over the challenges. And I'd like to also reference that the study that was presented earlier by Dr. Laura Wilkinson is really bang on. It's a fantastic study, and a lot of that stuff we are observing now. Dr. Wilkinson mentioned earlier that her information is a little dated. I'd like to inform everyone, and I'd like to inform her, you know what, Dr. Wilkinson, it is not so dated. It is actually current stuff. It's actually current findings that we are currently observing now. Next slide, please. Okay, so we provide Earlier, we have one-on-one orientation, and we also provide family orientation in our offices in the different parts of the country. And I would also like to inform that um, if I can reference the study of Dr. Wilkinson earlier, that the biggest challenge of everyone, the biggest concern of everyone in all of this is employment. The Filipino, I cannot speak for folks from India. I cannot speak for folks from China. All I can do is speak for folks from the Philippines. The Filipinos, by and large, have a 3-month window to find employment. In other words, they come to Canada. Within 3 months, they must find employment. And I just want to say that we have had success in finding folks employment even before they leave the Philippines. It's wonderful. It's a transition, if you will. It's something that is not done overnight. It's a work that develops over time. And now we are finding that not only do they find employment, they are also finding within 2-3 months accreditation in their field of study. So this is really, really good. And we don't do it by ourselves, by the way. We actually do it with partners who I'm going to inform in a little bit. Next slide, please. Okay. We also have online sessions. That doesn't disappear. And our online sessions actually extend beyond the working hours, as I'm sure a lot of the other online sessions are experiencing. We go 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, people phoning after work, that sort of thing. So we are not so unique that way. Our online sessions are well used by the immigrants, and we keep busy as well, way into the evening. Next slide, please. We also offer related employment related services. Now, this is where I'd like to inform everyone that in the Philippines, what we have recognized, number one, is we cannot work in a vacuum. We cannot work by ourselves. So we have solicited the help of Mosaic SOPA. We have solicited the help of IECBC. At the beginning of our program, we have solicited the help of BCCA that would be Matthew Stevenson, who actually helped us. So thank you so much also for that help, BCCA. We are a service that recognizes that what we can provide, we don't have all the answers for. We also recognize that others have better answers than we do. And this is why I say that for us, as Dr. Wilkinson again stated in the study, there is no competition among us. The field is so wide open as far as client needs and clients themselves go. There's just so much work to do that all MHHS can say is we need to cooperate with each other. And in doing so, we will increase our effectiveness and relating to that, eventually our efficiencies as well. Next slide, please. These are some of the marketing strategies we employ. We don't stay in the office. We actually go out. We work with a Philippine government department called CFO. We, of course, have our referrals. These are our in-house referrals and our external referrals. We, of course, have the letter from the embassy. As everyone knows, we use social media. We use radio programs. We actually attend radio programs. We, as everybody probably does, go to immigration consultancies to help us bring clients in. Our websites, of course, and our flyers and brochures are there. By the way, just to inform, our interviews with radio programs, those are invites. These are not paid advertisements, not paid. We don't do anything that is paid. So all of these, with the exception of creating flyers and brochures, don't cost us anything. We only deal, of course, with IRCC eligible clients. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, we have offices. We attend radio programs throughout the Philippines, Davao, and in Manila. Next slide, please. We also do TV interviews. So this is one of them that we had just done probably 2 months ago. When the colleagues of Tim Farron, Mr. Tim Farron, went to assess the program in the Philippines, we actually had them attend one of these interviews. So they was quite it was quite nice for them to attend, and it was quite nice, I think, that they found that this was a useful avenue. Next one. Okay, we do social media. Next one. Okay, this is what I want to emphasize. These are the findings that we found on land. Okay, we do a grassroots level approach. Okay, and we have a committed and dedicated staff driven by a vision to help Filipino immigrants. By the way, our staff in the Philippines are national staff, but they had a full immersion in Canada. And the program that the orientation that we provide is Canadian developed and created. Okay, and our objective, of course, is smooth transition. I won't go through all of it. If we can go to the next slide, please. These are the challenges. These are the ones that I was going to say. The first challenge is an inflexible funding contract that we have found. What I'm trying to say here is not the fact that IRCC is not there to support, but rather that on land, things change in a blink of an eye. And a lot of times we find that components that were created at the beginning of the year that were entered into the budget suddenly changes. That's what I'm trying to say here. And so what we need is IRCC to help us recognize these changes and to help us manage these contracts so that they meet the needs that are current on land. Competition, Dr. Laura Wilkinson mentioned earlier, there is no competition. No worries about that. Online versus on-ground services, there is no competition there either. We refer clients to our online partners, again, such as Mosaic, such as IECBC, Access Canada, etc. Okay, and so forth. This list is not inclusive of everything. These are our results. Okay, we registered unique clients for about a year and 3 months, 6,882, and the number of group orientations, 565. So you can see, again, I state Dr. Wilkinson's report is bang on. There's lots of opportunities for everyone. And this represents only 10%, less than 10% of the number of Filipinos coming to Canada as immigrants. Next slide, please. These are the provincial designations. Won't go through everything, but the largest share goes to Ontario. Next is Alberta. Next is BC. Manitoba is not far behind. Next slide, please. The Helping House, again, is located in Vancouver. Our website is helpinghouse.ca, very simple, helpinghouse.ca. Our pre-departure website is pathways.com. So next slide, please. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we welcome any questions. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you so much, Michael. We would like to now move into the Q&A session portion of the event, and we do have many questions that have come up so far, so I'll go right into that. And there are some different ways how you can submit your questions, and you can see that on the screen. Our first question is for Dr. Laura Wilkinson, and From the research that you conducted, did you find if any of the pre-arrival services were also provincially funded, or were they all funded through IRCC?
So at the time, we were only able to talk to 3, 2 in BC and 1 in Manitoba. From what I understand is that the majority, but maybe not all of the funding came from IRCC. But I think, again, like that depends on the context. I can't say for certain.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question that we received would be for Tim Farron from IRCC. And that would be, many newcomers expect to learn Canada's official languages upon arrival. Did the outcomes of the evaluations you mentioned focus on level of pre-arrival awareness of LINK programming? And if so, in what way was there awareness of LINK?
So I guess the evaluation is still underway, so we haven't really got the outcomes yet, though we expect to get those later in December and January. So they are looking at awareness of services, and there is going to be a sort of a client survey of those that have received pre-arrival as well as those that didn't, so there'll be a comparative. So there may be some information flowing from that around the language services and availability, but I can't answer that now, but hopefully that part of that information will be available through the evaluation.
Okay, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to getting any information once all of the evaluation has been finalized. The following question that we received would be for Johnny from Success. Johnny, in your presentation, you mentioned that Success has served 11,000 clients, and there was wondering if you could give any demographic breakdown in terms of age, gender, any other statistics that you would be able to share.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, the 11,000 kind that we serve is up to last year, 2016. And as I mentioned that this year, we have been serving a lot of clients. And actually, in the past 6 months, we have served more than 2,500 clients. And most of our clients, they are under skilled category. And particularly, for example, in China, we have a lot of clients who are Quebec skilled worker category. And so again, that in the past year, we observed that it's a trend that the current age group is getting lower, and most of our clients, they are between 25 to 44, and they are very educated young family members, and of course, most of our clients now, they are coming from China, but also I mentioned that we also do outreach to other countries. And in fact, we did receive quite a number of clients coming from India too.
Thank you, Johnny. The next question is for Dina and Iona, but we'll go with Iona first as she's online, and then we'll follow up with Dina. What approximate percentage of SOPA and FAST program clients meet the minimum recommended level of English that you mentioned in your presentation? And if they don't yet meet this eligibility requirement, what recommendations do you make to those pre-arrival clients?
Thank you for that question. Because it's an online program and like the participants need to really read through a lot of content, we highly recommend that they meet the CLB level from 5.5 and up. If they do not meet that, we recommend that they do language classes at first. But at the onset, this is one thing that we have identified, that participants should be able to comprehend like written material, because we don't do one-on-one coaching or one-on-one sessions with the clients. We do have webinars, but that also like entails that they have a working level of English. So we recommend that they are ready in terms of language, and we can refer them to other language classes before they register for FAST.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Iona. And Dina?
Just one comment here. As majority of our clients are skilled workers, and the principal applicant actually should have taken IELTS before contacting us, and their requirement would be 6 or even higher. So that's why we basically never experienced any challenges with English. And so far, majority of our clients are from India, from the Philippines, and basically in both of those countries, a majority of people speak 2 languages. So that's why that was never a major concern for SOPA.
Thank you so much. The next question is for Tim Farron at IRCC. And the question is really in regards to if there's any IRCC BC initiatives that really look to showcase and highlight BC's interior and northern regions to newcomers. And so it was looking at the question compares it to, is there something similar to the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program for that it would be relevant for British Columbia?
So there's nothing, I guess, exactly the same. I mean, broadly, pre-arrival services are intended to provide all information nationally. I mean, depends on the project scope in terms of their niche, where newcomers may be destined. There's certain service providers have a better knowledge of those areas. But in terms of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, that is just a pilot at this point that's focused on settlement and retention in Atlantic Canada, working very closely with employers, and there is a real clear mandatory settlement approach around a needs assessment. So we are monitoring that closely, and there may be learnings from that pilot that then the government may wish to implement more broadly, but it's a 3-year pilot, and it's year 1, so that'll be a decision down the road based on outcome.
Thank you, Tim. We have another question for you. It seems that it's very popular to ask IRCC questions, but the question is, are there future plans to better support pre-arrival clients in trade careers whose levels of English are not job ready? It was expressed in the Immigration Research West slides that employment services were in demand more than language services. However, once newcomers arrive, it is often reported that language level is a barrier to accessing living wage jobs in trades and non-trade work.
Sure. So, I think I can answer that a couple ways. I mean, certainly, as I go back to the evaluation, we really want it to help us point to some real outcomes, which are those interventions that are showing most promise of success, and that will certainly help inform some of those policy directions in terms of areas of emphasis. In terms of the language and employment, I mean, that's, I think, a big question for the sector and for clients, and I think it's somewhat client specific in terms of the best approach, both being necessary. And so I think that's one area that we are looking at in terms of where there's opportunities for language while employed for those clients that have that preference, or where that learning model may be better. So I think we want to have ranges of options in terms of language and employment for choice.
Thank you so much. And one of the other questions that we received, it was a very general comment that we received, and so I'm not sure who would like to answer this, and I'll first delegate to some of the individuals who are here in the room. Throughout the presentations, there was little mention of referrals to language training post-arrival. And so the question was, do you find that clients, when they do arrive here in British Columbia, that they're still in need of additional language training? Do they take part in language training, or is their language level sufficient enough that they don't take part in language training?
This is Johnny. Maybe I can give some of our experience working with clients. So we understand that most of our clients, when they apply to become a PR in Canada, most of them, they are educated, but their family members or their child may need language support. So we did work with individuals, and during our lead assessment, we will assess their settlement need, employment need, and also their language training need. When they arrive Canada, we also follow up with them, and we found that most of the clients, especially for the family members and child, we have some follow up that around more than 60% of the clients who identify they have language need, they will try to attend language training and also will participate in some link classes which provided by settlement service organizations.
Thank you so much, Johnny. And before we end this webinar, we just have one. We would like to ask Tim Farron to clarify a question that he received following his presentation regarding some of the asterisks listed in his presentation. So I'd like to give him that opportunity before we close the presentation.
Thanks very much, Sabrina. Yes, I just want to clarify, I was on slide 5 of my presentation, or actually may not have been. It was the slide that was looking at the number of countries, and the asterisk by country refers to where there is also mobile in-person services, or mobile services in addition to the in-person. So that was the nuance, but the slide wasn't that clear, but it refers to where there are mobile in-person services.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification, Tim. And we will be ending this webinar now, as it is noon. We have received many more questions, and I will be sending out those questions to all of our presenters and request a written response from them that will be shared amongst all of the individuals who registered for today's webinar. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. I will be sending out an email following this webinar with a link to our online evaluation form, so please take the time to fill it out, as we really rely on this feedback for future events and trainings. I will also be sending out emails with some of the resources that were shared and mentioned, as well as the PowerPoint presentations. I would like to say a special thank you to all of our speakers here in person and via teleconference for giving us their time and expertise to really support the sector. Thank you to the AMSSA team for assisting in making this event possible. Again, we would like to thank Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, for funding this event and for taking part in it as well. And we will be posting all the presentations and resources on the AMSSA website. Please watch out for your SettlementNet notification once all resources are posted online. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day. Bye-bye.